Well, in other news, Donald Trump has decided that the USA is full. So screw all you Hondurans and other brown people around the world who we bombed, robbed, and politically undermined. You're on your own.
This is our new statement. The system is full. Can't take you anymore. Whether it's asylum, whether it's anything you want, it's illegal immigration, can't take you anymore. We can't take you. Our country is full. Our area is full. The sector is full. Can't take you anymore. I'm sorry. Can't happen. So turn around. That's the way it is.
As someone who loves freedom and teaches the Constitution and has had to kind of live my life around staying out of the US concentration camps for doing so, there's a couple things that we should really take away from this. One important point in all of this is that the USA is not full. In fact, the birth rate has fallen to the point where we are 16% below the needed rate to maintain the population of our country. It should also be noted that the numbers of people, this horrible, terrible numbers coming to our border in the USA are not even a real problem. In fact, even in the early 1900s, in New York alone, 10 to 11,000, yes, 1,000 people would sometimes immigrate in a single day. So acting like these numbers are some sort of invasion, that the system, the country can't handle it, it'll ruin our economics, that is the nonsense of a socio-fascist state. It's important to note that Donald Trump and his federal government has nothing to do with immigration. Constitutionally, they have exactly zero authority over immigration. The only authority the federal government has under the Constitution, and according to the Founding Fathers, was to establish a standard rule of what it required to become a voting citizen. All immigration laws are unconstitutional. They are null and void. The federal government has no authority over immigration. The federal government has no authority to build a wall. The idea of building a wall and turning your country into New Berlin is ridiculous. And what's the argument? Well, you lock your doors at night, don't you, Gavin? They say, well, yes. In fact, down in Mexico, they actually have walls oftentimes around their houses. Of course, in the USA, those of you screaming for a wall cannot actually build a wall around your house because that would violate codes. And if you tried to build a wall around your house to give yourself true privacy and keep the police from kicking in your door, like they do in Mexico, well, they don't allow the police to kick in their door, but that's another matter. If you built a wall around your house, the code enforcement people would come out and say no in most areas. And if you built it anyhow, they would send out men with guns to stop you from building it. And if you resisted, they would kill you. So the people that are cheering for a wall, saying we have a right to defend our property, actually have no right to defend their property from the very fascists who want to build a wall. So you have a right to build a wall around your house. That's your private property. You don't have a right to build a wall around everyone else's house, on the roads, on the borders, and on the country, because travel and the access to the land for beneficial use is a fundamental natural human right. Travel restrictions are forbidden under the Fourth Amendment, and anything not listed in the Constitution, any authority not granted in the Constitution, which immigration is not in any capacity whatsoever, is banned to the government under the 9th and 10th Amendments. Now, we could go into the fact that the Bible forbids treating the immigrant any different than the citizen for those that are believers. We can go into the natural law aspect. We could also just go into the basic common sense aspect, that it's utterly ridiculous that you should need permission from government to live and travel. This is a modern agenda. This is not how the world has worked throughout the history of the world. This is an agenda of control and fascism, and the walls are to keep you in. But what about the jobs? They're taking the jobs and they're working for cheaper and they're ruining our economy. That is again a fallacy. If you have a country of real economics, immigrants, trade, travel, and movement creates economics. Government controls, rent controls, wage controls, living controls, immigration controls destroy economics. So if you didn't have immigration restriction, the disparity of what the immigrant worked for versus the citizen if it was not controlled by government, would not be that different, because you would not be able to value the immigrant lower as a quote illegal and use them as slave labor, because they would not fear being deported and demanding their rights if the Constitution was being upheld. So no, Donald Trump, the USA is not full. However, me and my family left your fascist USSA, refused to comply with your fascist courts, and we went south. So there's another 12 seats or so that maybe could be filled. So what does all this mean? It means we've been dumbed down into such non-patriot, statist, police-worshiping, government-sucking, party-following sycophants that we don't know basic common sense from utter despotism. The Founding Fathers forbid immigration restriction. The Constitution forbid immigration restriction. The Declaration of Independence forbid immigration restriction. In fact, it was one of the listed grievances against the king and the reason we fought the revolution. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. It's as dumb of an argument as saying we should ban guns because it will keep us safer. Left and right are two wings of the same bird. Isn't it interesting that the argument from the left is to take away guns to stop violence, and the argument from the right is to take away the right to travel to stop violence, as if restricting the individual's right to travel will make you more free. Ironically, the arguments for people wanting to build a wall and close the border are exactly as dumb as the arguments for people saying we should ban bump stocks, take away the guns, take away the bullets, and then we will all be safe and happy in our little paradise. Have we covered this? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. That's why down in Mexico they can have walls around their house, because that's private property. But the idea of a wall around the country is utterly ridiculous. And no, there's not a wall on Mexico's southern border. It's in fact quite easy to simply straddle the cow fence that marks the boundary and head on in. In fact, for a few pesos, you can hire a boat, send immigration officers to ferry you back and forth. What immigration procedures and abuses are being implemented in Mexico are being sponsored, paid for, and produced by threats from the US government. Well, there's some cold, hard facts that I'm sure will be met with mudslinging and non-cold, hard facts, because it seems like ignorance, flag waving, nationalism, and faction worship is now more important than freedom, logic, reason, debate, and most importantly, caring for your neighbor.